away from it previously that we installed it before. So we should have a tighter seal, and there will be a 1-year warranty on the contractor for that. And if we have any problems, the contractor will come back and address it. As far as being able to guarantee it, we were not aware that there was a flood issue in that area. I'll need to take another look at that now that you mentioned that and brought that to my attention. I'd like to take another look to make sure we don't have any sloping or grades. I'll talk with Brad about that and see what issue might have been in the past.
Additionally, it brought termites in, and we had the damage inside the door, and they had to go and drill plugs in the gym floor, and additionally down the classroom wing all the way to the end of it in order to go back to, I guess, the bedding of where the termites were gathering.
Okay. Well, let me talk with Brad Abbey. I'll make a note of that, and let's get together with him. And if I need to make a trip over there as soon as the snow breaks, we'll confirm that there is positive slope away from the doors. But the new thresholds should improve. Those old thresholds were just shot. So this should be an improvement over what you had before. But let me look at that and get you an answer by Thursday's meeting. How's that sound?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So that's those three, or those two. I'll move over to the next one. And the last one here is the actual canopy at the bus canopy at Camp Dick. If you've gone out there and if you've driven by at night, the lights are on, the LED lights are working. You can see here that we're 94% complete. We've had 0 change orders to date. They were supposed to be done by the 29th. They did get substantial completion. It was punched on February 3rd and the 5th. So all the parking is done, the canopy installation, the canopy lights, the concrete sidewalks. There is some sealant that's on the punch list, some grading of the lawn area near the lot, some seed and straw of some graded area, and clean out a head wall and place the new riprap. So there's a little bit of work still remaining there that they're going to be working on as punch list items. We do have a couple of proposal requests. I met Mr. Stahl. He was kind enough to meet me on a evening, and we went out there and walked the site and looked at, although those lights are burning all the time, they're not supposed to be. And the contractor's been made aware of that, and he's looking at the photo cell to make sure those lights are going on and off properly. But while we were on site looking at things, there's a couple of areas that are dark that were outside of the scope of the work. There's an existing canopy that comes out of the building that we didn't do any work to. We're going to look at getting a price just to see, for basis of comparison, to see what it would cost the contractor to put some lights on that canopy. And the floor plan of the building steps back on the left-hand side at a classroom area, kind of creates a shadowy area there. We want to see what it would cost to place lights. And if it's something you all want to do, you can do it via change order, or we can get Brad to put the lights down. Either way, I want to get the price on that and what you want to pursue. The other thing that we're working on a proposal request for is there is an existing ADA ramp that was outside of the scope that's down at the far end of the sidewalk. And the question's been raised, can we add a new ramp to get those children in that are handicapped directly underneath the canopy from a drop-off zone? So we're looking at that right now. I went through an option today, evaluated the option, and I didn't like what they were doing. And I told them, let's take a look at it. So we've got an option with the contractor. I hope to have both of these items to you, along with the credit for the unused allowance of $11,000. Hope to have all that to you all for your agenda Thursday night to approve, if it works out and we get all those numbers in. So that's what I would be looking forward to here on Thursday night. I don't have the numbers tonight because, again, they're making some changes to some of that for me that I didn't like. But you can see the canopy here. I think it looks really nice out there, does a good job. Change the look of that side of the building. This area in the photograph to the right is where we want to add some additional lights so that at night those do not get so dark back in that area. And you can see the lights are on here, that thin, narrow, built-in, non-roostable. There's no place for birds to roost, no place for insects to sit. We've got a really nice, clean canopy on this building. I really like the way this turned out. It's a complete change. Not the old style canopy where every flute you had a bird roosting in, that's for sure. Any questions? Anything I can answer for you?
My mic's off. Are those lights you just pointed out the ones that are not supposed to be on all the time?
Yes.
Okay.
They are LED lights.
Okay.
So those should be going off. They got a photo cell in the daytime. They should be kicking off, and in the evening, kick back on. But they should also have a timer on them to shut them off so they don't burn all night.
Okay.
All right. There's no other questions. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Cheek. Item number 3 is to update on the ACT March the 9th. Mr. Stowe, would you like to speak to that?
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to share this on behalf of the high school. ACT will be presented on or be taken by our juniors on March the 9th. And due to COVID, it's not going to be as easy for them to accommodate the process as it has been in the past. So they've presented a proposal and we've accepted it. We wanted to share that information with you tonight. So if there were questions about it, you would be able to answer that in the community. 9th, 10th, and 12th grade will be virtual that day. That allows them to go ahead and place the 11th grade throughout the building as they need to allow for the taking of the ACT, not to interfere with lunch and things of that nature. It was a wise move on their part to think of something of this nature, and we just wanted to make sure that you were in the loop and knew what would be going on that day.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Number 4 is the new superintendent standards, Mr. Stowe.
So as you all know, you'll do an evaluation of me at the end of the year, and it's based on the 7 superintendent standards. One of my responsibilities as a new superintendent going through new superintendent training is to make sure that you've heard about those standards. We could have been doing this throughout the year. However, once we became aware that there was a likelihood of a board switch, we wanted to make sure that everybody who was going to be part of the evaluation would be able to hear these. So tonight I'll just share standards 1 and 2 with you. Standard number 1 is strategic leadership. And if you take a look at that, you can read through that and see that it has to do with the district's visions, missions, and goals. And that's what we'll be working on in the strategic plan. So it's an area that we are addressing throughout this year. Standard 2 is instructional leadership. And we will be working again within the strategic plan to build that out, looking at our learning loss, curriculum, instruction and assessment, and how we build that with some of the proposals that we'll have. And so you'll be able to take a look at the work that has been done this year and evaluate me based on those 2 standards and the 5 that will follow it. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any at this time.
Any board members have any questions? All right, and we'll move on to item 5, which is view the regular meeting agenda for this Thursday. Mr. Stowe.
So we'll open that so that everyone can take a look. And with your all's permission, we will skip some of this opening information since it's normal, including our recognitions that we do and the SBDN minutes. At this point, we have no anticipated comments from the audience, and certainly you all will have that opportunity to make comments if you would like to. We will be sharing, making you aware of any new hires and any resignations since the January board meeting. And we hope to have some information for you around our focus groups and their review of the loss of learning survey. We were going to do that last week, but with the weather, we ended up having to move all but one of our focus groups. We have conducted one. We have some more that we'll be conducting tomorrow. We've turned those into virtual, and we hope that will allow everyone who wants to participate, who's been invited to participate, to help us out. I did some work today around this as well in consultation with some other superintendents. So we'll be sharing that information as we move forward. The treasurer's report, Stacy is on, and happy to have her with us tonight virtually. So I hope she's home safe and warm. I'm going to pull up her treasurer's report, and Stacy, we invite you to share with us the highlights of this month's report.
Okay, when you look at the treasurer's report, we have a balance of approximately 9.7 million as of January the 31st. 70% of this balance is from our general fund, as you can see in those individual totals at the top. When you go down to the bottom of that sheet, we're going to compare this January to where we were last January. And you see that we're up by approximately 3.2 million compared to last year. So the following pages are going to give you details of each fund that shows the variances. So our general fund, as we discussed last month, the balance is up due to a number of factors, including COVID relief funds, decreased expenditures due to virtual learning, and CARES funding. Our special revenue fluctuates each month, and during the month of January, we received our second allotment of state grants. We received an additional $72,000 of Head Start funds, and we also received our school security funds of $69,000 that was up front. Our school activity fund, of course, was not reported last year, so that was a variance for that fund. Our construction fund is up from the previous year due to our current construction projects that Mr. Cheek discussed earlier. Our food service fund is down due to the implementation of our spend down plan. And then all of our other funds had minimal changes when compared to the prior year. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I'm going to assume silence means that there are no questions. And obviously, if you have questions, we'll certainly entertain those on Thursday as well. We'll be reviewing the bond potential, and it's up slightly, about $30,000 again this time. And then we'll move to the consent agenda. In this month's consent agenda, you'll have your meeting notes from meeting minutes, from your working session and the regular session in January, approval of the treasurer's report that we just went over. We'll ask you to take a look at our strategic plan committee and consider approving that. That strategic plan committee will be the group that will be working to help make decisions relative to standard one that we were talking about a few minutes ago in the superintendent's standards. We'll also ask you to approve a stipend to reimburse mentors of new teachers. It's funds from KDE. We assume that it will be a one-time thing for this year, but if they want to provide them again next year, we'll be happy to take them. This is for us to pay and then request the reimbursement, no cost to you or the general fund. And we'll ask you to approve the tentative staffing allocations for 2021-22. We have to make those available to our principals no later than March the 1st. And we will be working off the assumption at this point in the tentative plan that the budget will look the same moving forward as it has this year. If there's a change, obviously, we'll come back and make a change to that by the deadline of May 1, where we have to give that final allocation. So those are all part of the consent agenda. If you have any questions on any of those, happy to take those. All right, moving on into the action agenda. The first one will be a conversation about and potential approval of a return to 5-day in-person instruction. We will have a plan for you that we will place in front of you, giving you some dates so that you will know what you're looking at around that. And then obviously any discussion that you all want to have around that particular potential action will certainly be invited.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
will the fact that we're now in the orange, and if our numbers continue to improve, will that make that go a little bit more smoothly?
I don't know if it makes it more smooth or not. It's certainly a nice thing to see. It was a really nice thing yesterday when I saw that. What it does, I think, is alleviates a little concern that's out among all of us. But what it doesn't alleviate is the fact that we could jump back over that number again, that's just an arbitrary number from the standpoint of it doesn't necessarily resolve all of our issues. So I think when you're thinking about this and the decisions that you make, we should consider it based on what if we were in red, so that we don't have to come back and make another decision relative to that.
Thank you.
Mr. Soul, I had a question when I was thinking through this particular item on the agenda. Do we know definitively what percentage of our student population would be returning and what percentage would be staying in the virtual environment?
So we think when we make this announcement that number will change. Right now, the elementaries are relatively close to 80% who say they would come back. But as you know, even though the staff has had an opportunity to have a vaccine, the students have not. And so we think that there's the potential that some folks may decide that they would like to wait a little bit longer to ensure that everything is okay. We'll give you a number based on what we currently know, and then hope that it stays fairly close to that.
I was also hoping that before Thursday, we could find out what our immunization rate is in our district. I tried to find that today from the health department and wasn't able to, but maybe before Thursday, we can find out district-wide, not just for our school staff, but our community district-wide.
We can ask the question for sure. We'll be asking you to consider approving a new custodial position at a district level to move from a substitute position to a contract position. And if you're seeing the screen now, you can see the areas that we would be looking at that individual covering. So if you have any questions about that. I'll also be asking you to consider approving a creation of a Director of Public Relations and Visible Technology. And linked here is the job description, and you'll be able to look through that. It is a district level position. The idea there is that we get a great deal of support around some areas that I think we need some support. Making sure that our web page is up to date, that our social media sites are updated on a regular basis, and people can anticipate what that's going to look like each day. So I encourage you to read through that. If you have any questions, happy to speak to you about that as well. We'll ask you to approve auditors for fiscal year 2021's audit. This year you use Patrick and Associates, and you can choose them again. If you would like to go a different route, we can certainly do that. We would have to do an RFP for that. My recommendation would be that you stay with Patrick and Associates, but it will certainly be your all's decision. We'll ask you to approve a pay scale adjustment for our central office secretarial staff. I did some research on all our classified staff, and we have some issues that we probably need to address over the course of time in a number of areas to move us a little bit further up in the ranking or with surrounding communities. But with this particular one, we have a situation that's a bit more glaring than all of the others, and that is that the top end of this pay scale is under the beginning pay for everyone except one district. And so we'll ask you to take a look at that. We continue to look at all of the others, and if there was a need to come back to you in March with another request, we would make that. We're trying to do these things at the same time that we're looking at budgeting so that there's no surprises moving forward. And we have 3 pay applications, 2 for the GMS exterior door pay application number 3 for $45,252. Pay application 4 for $6,989.38. Then pay application number 4 for CDR's canopy project at $117,229.95. And as Mr. Cheek walked you through previously, all of these are at a point of getting very close to wrapping up. He mentioned earlier the change order for the canopy project, which is an extension of weather days in the month of January and also a credit. And he did share with you that he was going to potentially share some possible change orders to that project, but also there's not a guarantee that that will happen. And so we'll see what he's able to give us on Thursday. So any questions about those pay applications or the change order? Okay, we'll ask you to approve a teacher leader implementation plan. We have expanded the idea of what a department chair is or what a grade level chair is to being a teacher leader. And we want to bring this into play at all of our schools. In the past, it was not necessarily a position that was compensated at our elementaries. We want to bring them in for the equity piece that will bring to us. We'll be looking at ELA, math, science, social studies, and special education as the minimum at each of our 5 schools. These individuals will belong to the principals, but they'll be hired as a district paid position and will be a part of that hiring. It's not a site-based position, and we'll be able to capture these individuals to capture may not be a good word. We'll be able to invite those people in to work with us if we're working in the areas of ELA, math, science, social studies, and compensate them in a way that they haven't been compensated previously, so that we feel more comfortable with doing that. And as we think about developing a district-wide curriculum, we see this as a pipeline to help us share information in both directions, from our schools to us, and then from central office to our schools. If you all approve this, we'll post those positions as early as Thursday night and start the process of looking at what that hiring will be. We'll utilize these folks in the spring to help us with our loss of learning recovery. And then once we arrive in July, we'll move back to using them in a normal fashion. We'll ask for approval of the second reading of the job descriptions for Garrard County Schools. And I would ask you, if you have any changes since the first read, if you would just send those either to me or to Mr. Gresham so that we can make sure we've updated anything. And if anything gets updated, we will forward that information to you prior to the board meeting. And then our last item on Thursday will be to open a conversation regarding the facilities plan and the potential review and discussion of where you would like to move forward with that. You have access to that plan. We've linked it there so you can take a look at it. And if there are items that you would like us to do on your behalf between the February and the March meeting, we'll be happy to do those so we can enter a discussion there. I did place that one last on the agenda because I thought it might have some significant discussion that would go on. So that's why I placed it in that location. So any questions about that or any of the other items?
As you and I spoke the other day,
Yes, sir.
and we talked about with the bonding potential of checking with Garrard what projects we could do, and we talked maybe moving forward with the new performance gymnasium at the high school, and maybe moving forward with the bus garage. I noticed when I looked at the facilities plan that the bus garage is way down at the bottom.
So it's placed there because it's not a direct service to the students as some of those other items would be. While it's a direct service in the fact that you're bringing kids back and forth on buses, students would never be part of the bus garage per se, but that is an item that you can still move forward. You've ranked it as high as you possibly can, which is not a problem. I did speak with Garrard at your request the other day, and they have zero concerns about working with us in conjunction with KDE in making sure we can get anything, get our maximum out of any of the projects that we're looking at. And they have no concerns about multiple projects simultaneously.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
So Dr. Browning, that takes you back to item number 6 on the original agenda, which I think is the same as item number 6 on this agenda.
Well, all righty. Well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right. Mr. Hart moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. McQuarrie seconded. All in favor, please respond by saying yes. Ms. Davis? I can hear Ms. Davis.
Yes.
Oh, she said yes. Okay. Mr. Hurt?
Yes.
Dr. Lamb?
Yes.
And Mr. McQuarrie?
Yes, sir.
Motion is carried. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Appreciate you being here on this.
Mr.
Slick
Stillum, I
night.
have a question.
Sir?
If the meeting is over and we're off of the air, I do have one question.